Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spindle TV. My name is Laney Shaughnessy. I'm your host this evening. Thank you for joining me. I have recently rejoined the human race. Got a haircut, finally, after all these months and months and months. No more hats or anything like that. So I'm feeling pumped up and revived. I feel normal again. I want to thank you all for spending your Tuesday evening with me. As always, I greatly appreciate it. Now, tonight we're going to talk about and go through some of the newly released features within the Vectric version of the 10.5, 10.5, 10.504, and whatever, just 10.5 and greater. There are enhancements that have been made in the software that are consistent throughout the VCarve Desktop Pro and Aspire. And then there are enhancements that are just some enhancements that are just for the Aspire software. We're going to cover as many as we can and go through some scenarios with them and things to just highlight them a little bit and talk about them. I'm very excited about a lot of them, just streamlining the way that we design and work and things, as well as the workflow in general when it comes to tool pathing and things like that. There are some new tool paths, such as the all exciting laser module that people have been kind of anticipating and stuff. There's new tool paths such as the chamfer tool and the thread milling tool and things like that within the software. So exciting stuff. And we're going to go through these tools. We'll start with the drawing side of things and put some things together and see how we would utilize some of them. Now, I'm going to be working in the Vectric Aspire software. But everything that I'm doing can be done in the VCarve Desktop and Pro or Aspire, all the three when it comes to the first drawing things. And then we're going to transition into some of the new Aspire functions and all. And the reason why I'm working in Aspire, and I could probably work in Pro and all to get started, and then we'll switch over to Aspire. I just didn't want to have to switch programs. I could just kind of transition from one tool to the next and things. So let's close this up here. All right. So let's get started. Enough of me rambling on. What do I want to do? Do I just want to open up VCarve Desktop or Pro? We'll go Pro. All right. So everything that I'm going to do, I'll open up Pro first. Everything that I'm going to do in here when it comes to the drawing and stuff can be done in Desktop Pro and Aspire. So we'll start off with the desktop software and move forward. The reason why I wasn't going to go to the Pro software to begin with is I haven't really updated to the 10.504. I'm at the 0.503. So I didn't want to take the time, but my Aspire is updated to the 10.504. So I figured I could just work in there. Okay, enough of that. Let me get a screen up here. Whoa. All right. So, thanks for joining me, guys. We got a lot of you in here. Harvey, good for you, Harvey. Harvey just upgraded. He still hasn't used any of the tools yet, but he's good to go. He's got it upgraded. Now, I'm a big advocate of keeping your software up to date, right? But there's times where we can't. We may have an older program and we don't have the $90 to upgrade our desktop to the latest version, or the $175 to upgrade Pro. I think it's $150, not $175, or the $400 to update our Aspire. And that just comes with the territory. We do what we can. If you do have the ability to update your software, I encourage it, because the Vectric is so great about you don't ever have to update your software, right? You get a lifetime of minor patches, minor repairs and patches throughout the life of that software if there's any to be had. And you get 2 major updates a year. And so if you started out with version, 9, 9.5, and then 10, right? So when you're there now to move to 10.5 and 11, that's the next year. And there's a fee for that to update and all, but you don't ever have to update. You can stay right where you are, for as long as you want. But the major updates that they do when they add new enhancements and tools, it's to improve not only the program, but improve us and make things a lot easier to work with. The tools, the functions, the way that we operate in our drawing realm, our workflow, our tool pathing and things. So the enhancements are good. There's a lot of people say, is it worth it? I've had people ask me, is it worth the update? And I'm always going to say yes. Now, as far as upgrade, let me put that in quote marks. Where can you see upgrade? From Pro to Aspire, is it worth the $1,300 to upgrade, or is it worth the $325 to upgrade from desktop to Pro? That's going to be, I'm going to leave that, to you guys and girls. I'm not going to tell you where to, spend your money. Updating, keeping your software up to date, no matter where you are, is always a good thing. Upgrading, you would only upgrade if you have that need or that requirement and stuff. So for me, even with COVID and everything, my machine still pays for itself. I bought my machine in 2014 as a way to supplement my income, because I, as a YouTube content creator and instructor and everything, I only get paid a certain amount, and I need to be able to supplement that income. And my CNC, when I bought mine, that was the things that I was going to carve and make and sell. That was my way of supplementing my income, and it's done that for me. So I want to make sure that for me, that my software is always up to date. So I've got the latest and greatest tools, but also at the same time, my CNC pays for itself from my sales. I set some of my sell money back, in a little fund, and it allows me to pay for my updates and things like that, and stuff, and my upgrades and all. And when I'm working with you guys and girls, I have an instructor's license from Vectric. It's a demo instructor's license. You've probably seen it in the top left-hand corner. I have all of the programs that Vectric offers in an instructor's license and all to teach and everything. But I still gotta pay fees and things like that for, I've got to buy, my router bits. I got to buy updates. I got to buy enhancements, the laser modules and things like that, things that are add-ons. And also we've got, I've got to pay for things too. And so you got to figure out what's going to be the best way to do that. Right. And I set some money aside to pay for my router bits, to pay for my upgrades, to pay for everything and all, because when I have the full versions and everything as well that I bought, because when one day I can't say that out loud. God, I don't want that to be true. But one day I might not be with Digital Woodcarver. I might not, I might venture out on my own, or whatever the case may be. And I still need the software, right? And I'm not going to be, Vectric's not going to just say, hey, here's your demo license, right? I still got to have my full version too. But with the demo and the training license, I get, all the enhancements and stuff earlier and all. So, like the laser module we had earlier and things like that to play around with. We couldn't release it or talk about it or anything until it came out. But we have, that access and all. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, let your machine pay for itself. That was the whole long point of that story and everything. And I recommend keeping your software up to date. That was the second major point for that long rambling and all. But as far as upgrades, let your machine pay for itself if it can. And now if it's a hobby for you and you're just like, making cool stuff for the kids and grandkids and neighbors and all that stuff, and you're not making money with it, then you have to decide financially, is it worth the update? And man, with some of the stuff that's come out and all from, especially from where I started version 8, that the changes, I'm gonna hands down say absolutely yes, it is. It's wonderful, some of the tools, and I love what they did with 10.5. So that being said, let's get into it and let's talk about it. Yeah, and Harvey's got a good point here. Harvey says, all the new free monthly projects seem to always use the latest software. And that, I think that's kind of true. I think that is very true. And sometimes, you know, when you download the projects, you might not be able to open it because you don't have that version and things. And then, of course, now there's months and months back of projects. There's pages and pages of those monthly projects and stuff. But those individuals that submit those monthly projects to the gallery and stuff, yeah, they're kind of keeping their software up to date. And then sometimes we get them and we can't open them because we're in an earlier version or something like that. And kind of, it's like, oh, shucks. That's why if I release files, a project file, I always release the DXF files for those that aren't running 10 or 10.5 or what have you. They can at least have the DXF files to import, and they would have to, of course, create their Toolpaths and things and all. And I don't know. Unfortunately, I've never had a chance to. I want that pump. That well pump is a cool project in the free monthly projects, but I haven't actually had a chance to download one of those. So I don't know if they also provide the vectors. I can't speak for that and all. Right off the get-go, you're going to see in the new 10.5, you're going to see a new addition to your startup tasks. You're going to see, you know, create a new file, which we all know to create a new project. But now we also have a new file from a template or open an existing file. And what that, I'm going to go into create a new file to begin with because I don't have any templates set up right now. But if you find yourself commonly using a particular thickness of material or a very common setup with your material or things, you can save those projects as a template. And of course it's grayed out because I haven't clicked OK yet. Here, let me click OK just on this job setup here real quick. We can save as a template. And when we do, it allows us to open up that template where all of our job settings are automatically loaded, right? So if I commonly work with a material that's the same size and same thickness and things, I can save that as a template now. So all I have to do is just open that template and it's loaded, and then I can get to designing. I don't have to, change any of the settings and all. Another reason for having a template is if I have a sign, let's say that I've got a sign and the only thing in that design that changes might be the person's names or the inner design and things. I can, let's see here. Oh, what do I want to do? Happy anniversary. Let's get that size down to a more appropriate size there. Let's say that, I have a wedding sign or an anniversary sign or whatever the case may be where John and Jane Smith or Paul and Ann Rubin or Margaret and Thomas Hatcher, the only thing that's going to change is the anniversary date, the names, maybe the little heart-shaped designs or whatever that I have in there. I can save that design as a template and I can open it up with my job setup where the board size is all the same, the design's the same, and the only thing I have to do is go in there and change my dates, my people's names or whatever the case may be. So now we can save as a template and we can open that template. It'll automatically open up the job ready to go. I don't have to make any changes. It's something that I rinse and repeat. I always work with, and if I was doing like my coaster sets, my 4" by 4" drinking coasters and stuff, for me, they always get cut out of 1/2" maple. They're all 4 by 4, and everything. I've actually got a template where, they drop in and stuff. So that for me would be a template. I could just, it's a material that I'm always working with. Maybe the design changes a little bit. Bam, bam, bam. I can just save it as a template and now open it as a template. And so we have that option in the beginning. Okay. So right off the get-go. So new file from template, right? That's the only thing that's changed on the front page. All right. Now, today I'm going to be working with a two-sided job. We'll do a two-sided job because I want to talk about the new some of the new modeling stuff within the VCarve and Aspire software. Two-sided job. I'm going to go 16 by 10 by 3/4. For me, I always work off the machine bed. My waste board is my Z0 position. So I'll work off the machine bed and I start from the bottom left corner. And when I'm doing a two-sided job, I always flip my board along the Y-axis of my CNC. So I'm going to flip along the Y. And we'll go ahead and click OK. And we're going to get in here. All right, let's start off with our rectangle tool enhancements. This one I actually really like. It's a simple change. Oh, July 25th is Crystal's anniversary. Good, congratulations, guys, Camaro and Crystal. Awesome. But this one I'm super pumped about. When I'm working with radius corners, internal or external radius corners, now when I'm creating a project, let's say, and everything, in my corners, you're going to notice these new 4 green knobs, right? And what I'm going to do is let me get myself centered. We'll come back to those in just a second. Let me get myself centered in there. Perfect. And we'll come back in here. Well, these green knobs are pulling anchors. So right on the fly, I can grab these anchors and I can change the radius of my design, on the fly. And as I change my radius for my borders or whatever, any of my rectangle shapes and stuff, it automatically updates that change there. And as I'm pulling in, I'm creating that round radius. But if I come out to my sharp corners, then when I start pulling out, then it changes to the internal radiuses. So on the fly, I can change my internal radiuses, to kind of gauge what I'm happy about. And I really like this. The reason being is, I don't always know what size radius I want to be and everything. And it's nice now that I can kind of look at it. I can sit there and go, yeah, that looks okay. That looks good. And I can kind of play around with it now. And that silly little adjustment right there to be able to play with those radiuses and stuff, that makes all the difference in the world for when it comes to designing and things. And if I can't, if I'm pulling this and I can't quite get to my number, maybe I want 3/4 and it's not really getting me to 3/4. All I have to do is come over here and put a 5 in there and click apply, and I can adjust it, on the fly. But I really, really like this feature. It's super exciting. All right. So the other tool enhancement that we have is within kind of the 2D drawing of the 10.5 is the trim tool. And so I'm going to grab that rectangle tool again. And let me go with a 1/2" radius here, and let me pull down that right there, and let me move that, get that centered, And let me go with some square corners. Let's pull that down. Let's get that one centered. Snap. I love the snapping features. Now the snapping, smart snapping, geometry snapping, that came out in version, what, 9.5 or 10 or something. Love that. So I can snap one object to another very quickly and easily. Let's see here. Let's pull that out. Pull that out. That looks close. Did I pull that one? Yeah, I pulled that out to one. Okay. Let's get out of node editing mode here, and let's take this, and I'm going to hit the Control C is the keyboard shortcut for copy, and Control V is the keyboard shortcut for paste, or we have our buttons up here. So I'm going to go Control C, Control V, and I'm going to paste a copy of this right on top of here, and I'm going to hit the number 9 key on my keyboard, and I'm going to rotate that 45 degrees in that counterclockwise orientation. All right. I'm going to also, while I'm here, I'm going to go Control C and Control V again and make another copy, and I'm going to hit that number 9 key twice. There we go. Slick as snot there. Let's see here. Let's take these objects and let's make them, I'm going to hold down my shift key and make them a little bit bigger just for demonstration purposes. And this guy, I'm going to make him a little skinnier. I'm going to hold down my shift key and grab the side and make him a little bit narrower and a little bit longer. And I'm actually going to rotate this one freehand for a minute, or not freehand. I'm going to use my rotate tool, and I'm going to rotate him 15 degrees off the center. Let's see. Yeah, 15 degrees. Okay. Let's Control C, Control V. It won't let me do it while I have a tool open. Duh. Control C, Control V. And here's one of the cool functions. Here's one of the cool functions. Hold on a second. We got to get help on this. Get help. I want to open up my rotate tool. Get help on this. And that's going to open up my manual right to the page of the book about the rotate tool. There is a keyboard shortcut for 15-degree rotation increments. And what is that keyboard shortcut? Right here, holding down the Alt key when doing a rotation, it'll snap it to 15-degree increments, and that's what I want. I love the get help on this tool. That was an enhancement in version 10. So I'm not going to open up my rotate tool here. I'm just going to double click on my object, and I'm going to hold down my Alt key so I can snap that in 15-degree increments, right? And things like that. So as long as I'm holding, it'll snap to those, 15-degree increments, which is pretty cool. Now, the one thing before I go all snapping and crazy and stuff, I want to make sure that my part is truly centered on there. Yes, it is. And I'm going to hold down my Alt key, and I'm going to pull it this way. And what do I want to pull? So that. Bear with me. I want to see where I want to go with this one. I kind of want to rotate it there, which is, why does that not look centered, ladies and gentlemen? Why does that look oddly not centered? Let me see if this part is centered. That. Ah, that's why it was looking funky. I was like, wait a minute now. Why doesn't that look, you know, like centered and all? And my this part here wasn't centered. So that also means that those guys are not centered. There we go. It was throwing me off there for a second. I was like, wait a minute, why doesn't everything look centered? Okie dokie. So, all right, that looks much better. Okay, I just wanted to make sure because, you know, when I was going, you know, 90 degrees and things like that, it was throwing me off. All right, so cool. So I want to go here. Oops. Control C, Control V. Hold down that alternate key and go back to there. I'm also going to copy and paste. Hold down my alternate key. And all right, that's good enough. So now with my vectors and everything here, I would need to, you know, if I was using my trim tool, generally in the older version, wherever there was an intersection, I would have to click. So click, 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 all, you know, everywhere, blah, blah, blah. You just click, 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 click. And now I don't have to do that anymore. Now all we have to do is simply hold down the mouse key, and wherever we run the mouse over, it will trim accordingly. Oops, missed one. And things. So you got to be careful what you hold your mouse over, because whatever I hold my mouse over, it's going to trim, right? We don't want to do that. That was just an example. But now I don't have to sit there and keep clicking. Click, 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 click. You know, that would drive me nuts. There would be a lot of, you know, a lot of clicking to do. But I can now, you know, just hold down my mouse key and move over the areas that I need to trim and interactively trim and stuff, and, you know, be happy with it. Now I'm going to hold down my mouse key again, and I'm going to trim away these little overlaps, and then I'll delete that away. But I don't have to click anymore. All I have to do is drag my mouse where I want to trim. So that was a little enhance. Oh man, hold on. Are you guys seeing that stuff? Okay, good. I was on the wrong screen. Okay, I thought y'all didn't see any of that. But you know, so now whenever, you know, something is you know, needs to be trimmed, snap to the center of that. I can very easily simply just hold my mouse button down, and whatever you know, I touch with that mouse, as long as that left mouse button is held down, it will trim. And I really like that. You just got to be mindful of what you're clicking on, because it's a very powerful tool now. Okay, so I like that. Let's get rid of this junk and let's get back to our normal sign. We don't want that, but that's kind of one of the new enhancements inside of here. We got our rectangle tool with the corners, radius corners and all, and then our interactive trim tool that we can now you know, hold down our mouse key. Now here's the cool thing. Last thing I'll say about that is here, I'll just draw a very simple shape. Let's do that. And let's throw that there. Throw that there. I'm using the Control C, Control V to make copies and everything. If I have objects that are grouped together, if they're grouped together and all, if I was trying to trim ungrouped objects with grouped objects and everything, it will highlight those objects automatically. It'll show me that, hey, those are grouped. So they'll highlight in pink. So if I hold down my left mouse button and I'm trying to, you know, trim an object and it's grouped together, it'll highlight it. So that's really good, because there's a lot of times where I've had, you know, customers call me saying, Laney, I can't get the trim tool to work. It won't, you know, I try to click on it, it won't trim it and all. And what they not realizing is that one or more, and not one, but they've had you know, a group, more than one vector grouped together, and not realizing that it was grouped together and they couldn't trim. So if I were to try to trim this, if I, you know, it's only going to trim the lines around the grouped area, right? So it's only going to trim the lines around the grouped area. It will not trim the grouped area. So if there's a certain thing like this little cross that I made here with an X through it, if I wanted to keep something untrimmed, I would group it together so it protects it, so I can trim all the other stuff, just like I did here. You know, if we put all this back to the way it was, you know, let's put that back as well, and that. If I wanted to just trim the, you know, the middle of that cross away and not mess with my X, I would group those two objects together, which they are, and then whatever, you know, now it'll be protected from, oops, undo that one. It'll be protected from, you know, trimming and stuff, you know. So that's pretty cool that we can do that. But now, of course, if I want to trim everything, then I need to make sure that I ungroup those objects, and then I can come in and trim, you know, those objects away and things. Ooh, two more right there and there, right? So that's pretty cool. So if they're grouped, they cannot be trimmed and they'll be protected. So keep that in mind. It's not a bad thing all the time. You might want to protect something from being cut, and you can group it together and it'll just trim around it, right? So that's a nice little enhancement. All right, let's get back to our sign here. So in this sign, now let's stop there. Any up to this point, and Troy was on it. Troy's like, the pointed ones are not centered. Thanks, Troy. I appreciate that. It was bugging me. I was like, why does that look odd when I rotate that part? Why doesn't it look centered? Troy was on it. I wasn't catching it. And James says, is there a way to control the 0.003? James, let me know what you mean by that 0.003. Is there a way to control the 0.003? Let me know what you mean by that exactly, because I'm not sure what you're referring to. If one of my numbers, you know, had a 0.003 somewhere, I'm not sure what it was and all. So let me regroup on that one, James Stewart, and let me know. Here's and James also comes back and says, when you're doing multiple pocket toolpaths, I notice if you have 3 different tool sizes, the second one will just clean out the corners and leave 0.003. Okay, this is where the 0.003 comes in. When you're doing multiple pocket toolpaths, I noticed if you have 3 different tool sizes, the second one will just clean out the corner and leave 0.003, and the final tool will go around the whole shape. Okay. So James's question was getting a little bit in front of what we're talking about. He's referring to the new enhancements in the toolpaths. In the pocket toolpath, we now have the ability to use multiple tools to clean out a pocket area, which we haven't done yet. We were about to do that. He's saying that the second tool is leaving a 0.003, 0.003, you know, and then the final tool is cleaning up that edge. I do not know that question. I do not know that answer to that question right now, James. Let's get into the design, and when we get to doing our pocket cuts and things like that, we'll see. We'll see what that entails and all. I'll answer your question from there. Alex Nicholson says, what is the difference between saving it as a template versus saving as a project from a technical perspective? Well, if I'm just saving it as a project, then, you know, I would have to reopen that project. So let's say, for instance, that I'm saving this as a project, and let's go into an empty folder, my music folder here that I never use. I don't listen to music on the computer, so we'll use that one for a moment. You know, this is going to be, you know, the Smith sign, right? So this is my project, okay, the Smith sign and everything. And if I want, you know, if this is a template, you know, this setup here within the software, if this setup here is something that I commonly use, I don't want to always have to go to my Smith folder and my Smith job to, you know, open up the Smith job and, you know, keep changing that and everything. What it does is, let's say that I save this as a template instead. So we'll save this. Let me close that. Close, save as a template. And I'll create a new folder in here, and we'll call it my computer is being a little jumpy and slow today. It does not like when my screen is and my resolution is so huge and everything. It's crazy. All right, so I'm going to call this my templates. Work with me there. All right, let's open that folder up. And this is going to be my 16 by 10 by 3/4 template. And hell, I'll just say, you know, it's my my oak sign, right? My 10 by 16 by 3/4. That should be 0.75, 0.75. Oak sign templates, and let's say that that's the material that I, you know, that I always use and all. Well, when let's close out of this, and if I'm opening a new file from template, keyword new file. So if I open that up and you know, go to my templates folder and everything, when I come in here and open this, up here at the top, it says new, right? So it opened up my template, but it's new. It's not the Smith job and all that good stuff. It's a new file that I can come in and I can, you know, after I click OK there, I can come in and, you know, save this as whatever. But if I just saved it as a project, like the Smith job, then I'm going to have to, you know, open an existing file. And I'm going to have to go to my Smith job, my Smith sign, and it's going to open up that actual project. It's not going to create a new project. It's going to open up the Smith sign. So, you know, any changes that I make, I need to absolutely make sure that I rename this, save as, and, you know, rename it to another project, because if I accidentally save it, then I just overwrote my Smith job, and, you know, I no longer have it because I just replaced it. Right. So, you know, the Johnson sign or whatever, you know, I got to make sure that I save as, because if I accidentally hit save, I've just, you know, just overwritten a project file, and that project file is gone. There's no going back to it. Right. I just replaced it. So if I save it as a template, I can open that template as a new file. So it opens up all the same settings and everything, same layout and stuff, but it creates it as a new project, an unnamed new project. It does not, you know, open an existing project that I could accidentally overwrite. So on a technical standpoint, that would be the purpose for saving it as a template versus saving it as a project. And that's why we would save it as a template. Okay. And Lenny, you know, everything I just said in 100 words, Lenny said in 4 words. The template cannot be overwritten. So there you go. That's exactly right. The template cannot be overwritten accidentally. Thanks, Lenny. I appreciate that. You know, so you know, I could, if I'm designing and stuff, and I open up, I'm like, oh, I want to make the same kind of sign as the Smith sign and use those settings and stuff. If I'm getting in a hurry and I accidentally, you know, save my changes, and I'll go, oh shit, I didn't want to save. I needed to resave that as a new name. It's a different project. Then I just lost all my Smith sign stuff, right? So, you know, shit happens, right? So you want to minimize that from happening, and saving a layout as a template is a great way to do that. So good on Vectric for adding that as a feature for us and stuff. All right, let's see here. So hopefully, Alex, hopefully that kind of, from a technical perspective, hopefully that answered your question. And yeah. And yep, save early and save often, but don't, if you're opening up an existing job that's not a template and you're using it for something else, don't save as, so you can rename it, right? And as Troy says, just rename it. Well, this is in case we forget to rename it, Troy, and we accidentally hit save and overwrite all of our stuff, right? Cool. So these are things. These are great questions. These are great comments. You guys are awesome. You're kind of on it, you know, and you can go there. Now, let's get this. I'm just kind of laying out a little simple sign here. Let's throw some text in here. Bum, bum, bum. All right. And let's see here. Oh my God. Can you imagine when your mind goes blank and you can't think of what to write here? Let's see here. Oh my God. What, I'm lost my mind. What do I want to write here? Oh hell, we'll just be generic. Let's go TV. All right, let's break this text block into lines. Let's grab this one and move it up here. And let's hold down the shift key. I'm going to grab this corner block. Let's expand that up a bit and let's bump that down about there. This next line, I broke it into individual lines so I can work with it. Let's make that a little smaller. And line to center. And let's take this, hold down that shift key, keep things in perspective. And let's get that centered. All right, let's go ahead and throw in He's nuts putting his real phone number out there. No, I'm not. It's all bitten. All right, let's get that centered left and right. Okay. So we got a little sign laid out. Nothing fancy, right? I'm not, for some reason, not being creative this evening. I couldn't. My mind drew a blank on what to make and stuff. But yeah. All right. So let's create another rectangle out here, and let's put square corners on that one instead. All right, let's go good. And this is going to be my frame. This is going to be my inner area. This is going to get V-carve pocketed and all that stuff. But I would like to, before I V-carve and pocket this, I want it recessed into my sign a little bit. I don't want the top of the letters at the top edge. I want it to be slightly recessed by, I don't know, an 1/8 or 3/16 of an inch. I want to be recessed down. And the pocket toolpath is going to be the tool to use for that. And I'm going to pocket this whole area here down that 3/16 of an inch, and we'll go 3/16, 0.1875. Too many decimal points right there. Now, one of the enhancements with the pocketing toolpath, as well as the inlay pocket toolpath and things, is the ability to use multiple tools. If you do not want to use multiple tools, make sure you remove any tools that are in there, or else it'll set it up for using multiple tools and all. But in my case, I'm going to use multiple tools to kind of maximize or minimize my runtime and maximize my effectiveness, and also helps keep the wear and tear on my tools down, because I ultimately, want to try to, get things done as quickly as possible. But there's going to be areas of this that might. Ooh. What? Hold on one second. Was that a gunshot? See what that was. Sorry, we had a loud boom outside. Hopefully his neighbors aren't shooting each other. Let's go with my end mills. And I'm going to go with a 1/2 inch end mill. I don't know why I'm hitting remove. That's because select is down there. And then I ultimately, in the corners here, I'm going to go ahead and probably use would I do this in 2 tools or 1? Let's do it in 2 tools. Let's remove that one, and let's add in my 1/8 inch end mill. And I'd really like these radiuses to be nice and tight as much as possible, so I'm actually going to throw in a 1/16 in there as well. Okay, so here I've got 3 tools that I'm going to use to pockets out. My big tool is going to do a majority of the work. My smaller tool is going to come in and get everything cleaned up, and then my little tool is going to come back and finish up. Now this is where James, was it James? Yeah, James Stewart. This is where James was asking about the 3/1000 of an inch, and let's see what he was referring to. So I'm going to go through and let's see here. So 1 pass, my 1/8 inch bit is going to do that in 3 passes, and my 1/16 of an inch bit, I'm going to double that down to 3 passes as well. Actually, yeah, that'll be fine. And let's calculate that toolpath. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, guys and girls. Mary Beth, see if that's a shotgun or something. I know. Oh, you went and hide. Don't hit the panic button. Just peek out the door and see what it is. Don't open the door. Guys, we got ruckus in the neighborhood. Something's exploding. Anyway, all right, back to class. Okay, sorry, I got distracted. All right, so we've got 3 toolpaths here. We've got our pocket one, which is going to do a majority of the work. That is always our largest bit is always going to be the first one, the first clearing toolpath. Pocket 2 is my 1/8 inch bit. It's coming in and kind of getting where it can get, and then my final pocket is going to, come through and do the clean up the edges. So I believe what James was referring to, and let's tilt this sideways a little bit so we can kind of get a perspective here, is that, let's preview these. All right, so firecrackers. Yeah, I'll look at it. Just keep the door locked. The gun's by my chair. Okay. Sorry guys. All right, so our larger pocket's going to do a majority of the work. The smaller bit is going to, my 1/8 inch bit is going to come in and just touch up those corners and everything where it can fit. There's no sense in milling. But now my smallest bit is going to come and do that nice cleanup around the entire edge. Let's get that in the mix there, and let's preview that. And that's going to come through and do that nice cleanup. Now, James, where do you, is there a certain number that it shows you that you see the 0.003, or is it, did you run it and you gauged exactly what that, middle toolpath is leaving behind? I don't know if there's a specific reason for that or not. All I know is the smallest tool in my choice is going to be my tool that, if we open this back up, because I'm doing, my rectangle here, it's going to be the smallest tool that comes back and does, my nice clean edges and everything. So I don't see where, and again, this is my first time kind of looking at it with you guys and girls, so I don't see where the where the number 0.003 comes into play and stuff. If you could help me out with that and tell me where you're getting that number from, then maybe we can come back and visit that and stuff. But what this does for me is, because ultimately my end result that I wanted, now I could probably eliminate my 1/2 inch bit or my 1/8 inch bit here, but I'd like to just try to, clean out where that 1/2 inch bit couldn't get. So it's cleaning out those corners where that 1/2 inch radius couldn't get to. And it's minimizing those radiuses for my smaller bit to come and not have to remove a whole lot of material here in the corners and things. And this ultimately is going to help reduce my runtime. Now, of course, I'm increasing time a little bit if I don't have an automatic tool changer. I am, because I've got to manually change the tool and all of that stuff. If I have an automatic tool changer, then it's just going to go pick up my 1/2 inch bit, mill, drop it off, pick up my 1/8 inch bit, clean those corners up, drop it off, pick up the 16th inch bit, and do that final pass and everything. And of course, that would be more proficient, time wise and stuff, because it's an automatic setup. But I'm the tool changer, right? I don't have an automatic tool changer, so I have to calculate my tool changing times, and everything into effect with this. So if we were to look at the machining time, okay, if I were to look at the machining time for these 3 tool paths, it's about, not 5 minutes. Let's check off all of them. All of them. There we go. It's about 17 minutes. So 10 minutes for that first cut, minute 50 for the second cut, and about 5 minutes to do that final pass with my smaller bit, right? So 17 minutes. Now, my ultimate goal is to get down to that 1/16 of an inch radius. So if I just created a pocket toolpath with my 1/16 inch bit, right, because that's what I ultimately want, and I calculated that toolpath and everything, if I were to look at my runtime on that, it's 11 hours and 6 minutes, right? So the ability to use multiple tools to minimize and effectively, clean up, pocket areas and things like that, work your way down to the smaller areas and optimize those toolpaths. That's a good thing. How many tools you use, that's up to you. But ultimately, it's going to be a lot quicker to machine out using multiple tools than it would one tool, that one smaller tool. Being able to use big clearance tools and things, you're ultimately going to be much quicker. So 11 hours versus 17 minutes, it's a no-brainer there, right? Even me changing the tool, I can do it a lot quicker in 11 hours, right? So that's, we didn't have that really before within, our pocket toolpath. We had the ability to use clearance tools, flat area clearance tools and things with other toolpaths like the V-carve toolpath, the profile toolpath and stuff like that. But now we have the ability to work with multiple clearance tools, and when we save them or when we drop them in, it automatically puts them in order for those toolpaths to run, which is cool. All right, so now I want to do my raised effect here, and this is going to be a V-carve toolpath. Now this V-carves toolpath is going to start down at that 3/16 of an inch. Okay, 0.1875, because that's where it's down in the pocket there. I'm going to choose my 60-degree V-bit. And for my flat area clearance tool, let's see how. Let's go. And there. Okay. All right. So if we calculate this, now those two toolpaths, the 1/2 inch and the 1/8 inch end mill, I can run them with the other toolpaths and things. All right. Oh, it would help if I put a flat depth in there. Duh. All right. Starting at 0.1875 and cutting down from there 1/8 of an inch from that start point. Let's go ahead and calculate that out. Okie dokie, tokie dokie. All right, and I'm going to pop this since my screen is so big. I'm going to double click on the word toolpath right here, toolpath, so that it pops up my toolpath manager so I can move that to the side so we can work with that. So we have these 3 toolpaths here. My clearance tool, my 1/2 inch clearance tool, that is going to, clear out all those main areas. My 1/8 inch end mill is going to come and clean up where it can. And then ultimately my V-bit will come and clean up those areas and everything. Okay. And so these, when it comes to these toolpaths, I can group them together or I can save them together. It's another feature that's in 10.5. But my toolpaths here, and let's close this and let's get back to here so you can see it down here. My 2 pocket toolpaths and all, I can group them together to, you know, carve, and I can rename that group. You know, this could be my 0.5 clearing paths, and let's move that up in the top of the list here. Let's check off these two here. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, just an update. That was gunshots. There are there's a lot of police out around the house right now. Not my house, but the neighbors. Let's group those together. And of course, I did not want the V-carve toolpath in that group. There we go. All right, so this one will rename. This will be my 0.125 S2. And then I've got, what's this guy? That's the 0.625 and that's the 0.625. So we'll check those off. Group those two. Be careful what boxes you have checked when you right click and group things. Don't accidentally, you know, check off the boxes like I just did, like an idiot, because it throws those tools in there and all. And this is my 0.0625. That should be a decimal. Okay. And then finally, so I've got my 1/8 inch bit here. I've got my 1/2 inch bit here. This guy, what did I do with my, that shouldn't be in there. Bear with me a second, guys. I got screwed up here just being a dumbass. Not paying attention to what was checked and what was unchecked. All right. Group 2. This should not be part of group 2. There we go. All right. Drag and drop. This should be my 1/8 inch, and that's the 1/2 inch. I don't want that one. That'll go into group 1. This, oh Lord of mercy. See what happens when you don't pay attention? All right, let's clean this up real quick. This is a title. That's great. The 1/2 inch clearing path. So that is number 1. That needs to go under that group. Let me find my other 1/2 inch clearing pass. That should be this guy right here. That belongs in that group. Very good. And then this one, rename one more time. it got grouped twice, so there's an actual group right there. This I'm going to delete that. Would you like to delete the sub toolpath or keep them? I want to keep the sub toolpath. This is a group. Let's delete that. Okay, so group number 2, rename. This is my 0.125 clearing tool. 0.125 clearing tool. Vectric would be shaking their head right now going, oh, you asshole. Would be going, what in the world did he do? Because I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy being nosy with the gunshots around me. All right. All right, so this is my 1/8 inch bit that needs to go under that group. There we go. That is great when it goes there. That's my 1/8 inch bit. That's perfect. This is group 3. How awesome when you get it right. And then the V-carve toolpath kind of falls on its own. I could create a group 4, but I don't have any other V-cut toolpaths. Let's minimize that, and that. And there's my V-carve toolpath. So now I can group without screwing up, right? You guys, you can drag and drop into the groups and everything. Just make sure you know what's checked before you group visible. And that was my problem. I had the things checked that shouldn't be checked. But now I can organize my toolpaths into individual groups for saving. When I save them, there's a new feature up here that I can save. And so all I have to do is check off a group here, and my 1/2 inch bit, when I save that, it'll automatically put the 2 toolpaths that are in there and save them as one file. Okay. And when I save that, let's go ahead and save this. And I'll just throw it in music here, and we'll just call it the 1/2 inch clearing pass for right now. If we save that, if we go back and look at the file that was saved, both of those under that title, both of those 1/2 inch bit cuts were saved together. Same thing here, 1/8 inch bit. We can save that. It would help if I select the right one. There we go. My 1/8 inch bits. I don't have my check mark checked there for visible toolpaths to one file. There you go. And my 3rd toolpath, let's undo that one and, save those. Again, make sure you are saving the right ones. And that would be my 0.0625 pass, whatever you want to call it, and save those files together. And then ultimately, I would have my V-carve toolpath, and we would save that. And of course, however you want to name it. And now, you have the ability to kind of group, to keep things grouped together, right? You don't have to group. Let's get rid of the groups. Let's delete this, and we're going to keep the toolpaths, but we're getting rid of the groups. I'm just showing you these are the new features. Delete that, keep the toolpaths, delete this group, keep the toolpaths. Okay. And now if I come in and check off all of these visible toolpaths, right? And I come in and save these, visible toolpaths to multiple files is a new option inside here. And so I can automatically save all those. It'll save them as different files, but I can also group where possible. And as long as my tools are in the same order and everything, it will group those together. So when I save this, let's give it a name. This is our spindle sign. When I save this, if we go back and look at what we just saved, you will see that I had the spindle sign, pocket 1 and 2 clearing, the spindle sign 3 and 4 that clear 2, spindle sign that 5 and 6 that pocket cut, and then the V carve. So it puts the name. This one doesn't belong to that. It's the one that has the spindle TV. So it will save them all as separate files, but it'll group them where possible. This is my, 1/2" end mill, 1/8 inch, my 16th inch end mill, and then my V-bit. So we have that option as well. Rather than just grouping, we can group where possible when we're saving. Or if they all were to use different toolpaths, we don't have to group. We can just save them, give it a common name. Let's go back. Sign, whatever, just so we know that it's different. And when I save those, it'll save all of these toolpaths individually, all at one time. I don't have to sit there and check them anymore. It'll save all of them individually in order. Okay, so now it's just kind of a single click. All I have to do is check off all the toolpaths in my job, go into save, and I can save them all individually, right, to multiple files. I can group all the bits that use the same tool together if I want. So it just creates that one file for those two tools. Or I can just keep doing what we used to do in 10 and 10.5 and, save toolpaths one at a time by the selected toolpath or the visible toolpath, right? So this is a new function, and it's really nice and everything. It's a nice function. The one thing that I like about this is the fact that that if my toolpaths, imagine if we had a profile cut that was on this job, and let's uncheck all these. Imagine if I had a profile cut that was cutting this shape out. You know that you always run your your profile toolpath last, right? That's the final cutout and everything, and all. Well, if there is a tool in between common tools, like for instance, this tool here, the Pocket Clear 1, that is my 1/2" end mill. The V-Carve Clear 1 is also my 1/2" end mill. The Clear 2 is my 1/8" end mill. Clear 2 is my 1/8" end mill. Then these two pockets are 1 and 2. That's my 16th inch end mill. Well, I have a V-carve cut here and then my profile cut. Now, if I had all these checked off and I save them and I click group where possible, you would think, and let me actually pick up on my profile cut. Let me pick a bit that we are actually using. Let's just for shits and giggles for right now, let's use our 1/2" end mill. Just for demonstration purposes. Okay. If I were to group where possible, you would think that because this profile cut uses a 1/2" end mill, that it would group it with the others, but it doesn't. It respects the order. It respects the order of the toolpaths. If there is a tool or tools in between two common tools, then it will respect the order and it will not group that that in with the others, because this is a profile cut. It's got to be last of the list. There's other profiles, you know, between them. So when I go to save these, and let's delete everything here so we can. Oh, I think that's going to be too slow to do that. Let's not. Well, my computer is running slow because of this big old screen. Let's create a new folder. Sample group where possible. And if I were to, let's get this spindle PV sign. Or to save this, and I have create multiple toolpaths, but group where possible, it's going to respect my order. And if we go back and look at this, you will see that I have my 1/2 inch end mill here, my 1/8 inch end mill here, my 1/16 inch end mill here, my V cut, and then my profile cut, my 1/2 inch end mill separate. Because there was tools in between these 1/2 inch and this one. So it respects that order and all. Did I lose you guys, or are you guys still doing good? That's the right tool. That's the right post processor, Tippy. Helical arcs inch. Post processor wrong. Which post processor, buddy? That's the correct post processor for my carving. I have Planet CNC TNG, and that is the helical arcs is the newest post processor to use with 9.5 or greater. I have the option of using that or the plain inch, but the helical arcs gives me a shorter tool path, much smoother turns around corners and stuff. So that's the default one. Yeah. Don't confuse me there, Tippy. Tippy's one of my customers. Great guy. All right. So long story short, when it comes to saving toolpaths, we have some new functions in here. We can either create our groups manually. We can create groups, whether it be creating an empty group and then just moving the files into that group, or we can create a visible group if we have files checked. So we can manually lay out our toolpath area in our groups. We can kind of break up our toolpaths and kind of group things together, which is pretty cool. Or, you know, we can now select all of our toolpaths, and when we save them, we can save them as individual files. We no longer have to check each one and save it, check each one, save it, check each one, save it. We can now check them all and output them out as individual files, which is awesome. And then if those files use the same bit, we can group those together, but it respects the order. So if there are common tools together, it will group them together. But if there's another tool dividing a tool that's kind of with, you know, that matches one of the upper aboves, it'll keep that one separate. And I like that fact because we always run our profile cut last. And if I was using a 1/4 inch bit for doing other jobs within this sign, and then at the very end, I have my 1/4 inch cutout, I want to do all of that, all of those items together at one time, but I want my profile cut to stay separate. That's last. I don't want to group that in or, you know, make a visible file with that. So I love this new addition in the toolpaths. Right. So if we were to, you know, look at this sign in real time as far as running and everything, let's move this over here. We have our 1/2 inch end mills, our 2 1/2 inch end mill cuts. Those are going to do all of the clearing my first pocket cut clearing, and then it's going to go down into my actual design and clear out that area as well. No, Tippy, helical arc is not just for round. Anywhere that there's arcs in your design, the helical arcs will, produce those smoother turns around corners and things. If there are no arcs in your design, then it'll just create a regular standard toolpath. So, yeah, it just it looks for those arcs and stuff, and if it's in there, it'll optimize that toolpath. So you can use the helical arc inch tap for your default toolpath for all your jobs. All right, so my 1/2 inch bit has done not only the clearing of the pocket, that 3/16 inch pocket, but it's also gone down and started clearing out around the letters, followed by my 1/8 inch end mill that would come in and again touch up those corners on that main pocket, that 3/16 inch pocket. Then it would come do its job and stuff. And then finally my 1/16 inch bit would come in and of course, let's stop that pocket 2. That doesn't belong. That was that one where I was showing you how long the runtime would be, the 11-hour one. Let's delete that. That doesn't belong in there. So my 1/16 inch bit would do its job and everything, cleaning up around that edge. And then my V bit would come and clean up my letters and all. And then finally my profile cut, which does not cut anything because I did it on the outer perimeter there, but it would, come and do the profile cut, right? So some enhancements in the way we save toolpaths, because before, in 10.0, I would have to check off these 2 toolpaths, come up here and output the visible toolpaths to one file, and I would save those and save that file. I would then come back, uncheck those, check off my next tools that use the same tool, click on save, and save them. Then I would close that. I would come back and check off my next tool, on and keep opening and closing, opening and closing. Now all I have to do is check all of my tool paths, come in here, create multiple files from there. And if they use the same bit, hey, group them together when it's possible, right? Save the toolpath. And it'll do all that work for me one time. I don't have to keep opening and closing the form. Love that. Again, it's all these little things that make things easier for us and designing. And it's confusing at first, right? It's like, okay, what the hell did he do with the group? What was that all about? Because he lost me when he screwed up and he had stuff checked off that didn't belong. So I'm confusing you. But basically what my problem is, if I were to create an empty group, right? Group number 1, okay, that is a title, that's a header, and that would be my 0.5 end mill, right? So let's rename that 0.5 end mill whatever. That's my header. And the tools, these 2 right here that fall into that, I can, add them by just hovering them over that. Within that, I can add them to that group. So now those 2 tools are part of that group, right? So now that makes a little bit more sense. Same thing is, let's come in here and we'll minimize this, and let's right click anywhere on our screen and create another empty group. Here's the header. Let's rename that my 0.125 end mill pass, whatever you want to call it. And then that would be this guy, clear number 2. So if I drop him under there, it'll drop it under that group header. And this one, clear 2, drop that under that group. It'll drop it in the group header. Okay, in order. So now I have that group. This is my 16th inch bit. It doesn't need to be part of the pocket cut right here, you know. And the let me undo that, delete that. The it doesn't need to be, that pocket, my 16th inch bit is not used anywhere else. It doesn't need to be part of a group and things and all. And here, this tool, that goes up there, that goes up there. And I've got to be careful when I'm grouping things, that you saw that group that I made, right, that 1/8 inch mill, when I moved it up the list, I drug it, right? I tried to drag it in place, and I actually drug it into the 1/2 inch bit, and it made it part of that group, and I don't want to do that. So what I want to do is I want to move it up in the list, right? But I don't want to make it part of that 1/2 inch group. So you got to be mindful and careful how you're doing it. And that's what screwed me up the last time, was that when I was dragging and checking, I had things visible, and I was on the toolpath, I was using the create, or group all the visible things together. And, just be mindful of what you're doing. These two groups are separate, but if I took this group right here, my end mill pass, if I moved it like I was trying to move it up the list and all, I've got to, be careful that I put it in the right place, because if I don't, then I'm actually adding it to that group, right? That subgroup, and we don't want that, right? So just be mindful of, what you're doing and all. So use your arrows, up and down arrows and all. If you need to reorganize your group positions and all that good stuff, that's fine. Use your arrows to move those things around, those groups or those individual toolpaths, so you're not accidentally dropping one group into another and things like that. And all. And that's all that, in earlier when I was doing that, I was using the, I was checking off, toolpaths, and I was using the group the visible, and it's throwing all those visible toolpaths into a group. And they don't all have, the group doesn't have to use the same tools. I can create groups just for, kind of organizing that, all of my sheet number one, I have 5 sheets of toolpaths in here. We saw that with the last week's projects, where we were doing the vectors and we were creating that kids table and chair. We had multiple sheets. I believe it was 6 individual sheets that those parts were being cut out of. I can group all of my toolpaths to sheet number 1, sheet number 2, sheet number 3, sheet number 4. Those can be group titles and everything. And I can group those toolpaths together just to keep my toolpath tree organized. Okay. But if we're trying to, let's say I have my 1/8 inch bit in my group right here, and I go to save this toolpath. Okay. Let's just right here, I'm going to get an error because I'm saving my selected group, right? Saving that 1/2 inch end mill, but I'm getting an error when I'm in my normal toolpath there. I'm getting an error saying, hey, there's tools in there that use different tools and it doesn't support it. You can't change it and everything. Now, if I have the option visible toolpath with multiple files, then it's going to break them up. It doesn't care if it's in group. It's going to break them up. If I say group where possible, it's only going to group the tools that match together. So it's pretty smart software, even though I screwed up and I dropped my 1/2 inch tool pass or my 1/8 inch tool pass into my 1/2 inch group. It's still not going to let me save them as a 1/2 inch tool. It's still going to say, hey, there's an error. There's 2 different tools in there. Or if I, chose to group where possible, it's still going to save Those 1/2 inch tools is one file, the 1/8 inch tools is another, the 16th inch tool is another, that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool. So the ability to use groups and all to kind of organize our toolpaths and keep things together is just a nice little enhancement. Will you use it? Who knows, right? You don't know. You may never use it. And you may just keep doing what you do, but it's there if you want to use it. All right. Up to this point, let's answer some questions. Let's see here, Tippy. Most of the projects are defaulted to inch. Is there an advantage using the helical on flat projects? If there's no curves or turns in that flat project, there's no advantage. If that bit has to turn corners, if there's like arcs and radiuses on that flat project, then yes, when it turns those corners instead of line increments, it creates a nice smooth turn, Tippy. So it will pick out in your design where a helical arc can be performed or not. And to answer that question more thoroughly, so everybody knows, let's do an example here just so you can see. Let me create a new layer, and let's turn off layer 1, and let's create a circle here, and let's create a rectangle with, that's funny. Let's create a rectangle with radius corners. Let's go 1 inch radius corners. All right, let's get everything centered up here. Not the warp tool or no distort tool. We want the center to material. Center. Okay. All right. So Tippy, if I were to, we'll select all of this here. If I were to save this toolpath in the regular digital woodcarver inch tap post processor, the standard inch tap post processor, first of all, let me create a toolpath. Let's do just a simple profile cut. We'll cut a 1/2 inch deep. We'll use a 1/4 inch end mill, cutting on the outside of the line. Software's smart enough, it'll cut on the inside of the line on that guy. Let's calculate that toolpath, and let's save that toolpath with a regular inch tap. Let's save that as sample no arcs. And then I'm also going to save that toolpath with the helical arcs. Sample arcs. Okay. Now, if I go into my File Explorer window, let's close that. And we look at the sample no arcs toolpath first. Stand by. Why can't you find it? Music. Sample no arcs. Okay, So this is the one, no arcs, right? So this is the toolpath. Each one of those line segments and everything is individually broken up into line segments. Whatever my nodes are, all those nodes in your design are, line points. And then of course it's got all the line segments to go around the corner. So if I would have opened this up in Notepad++, it would have showed me the number of lines, and we could have shown you that. But let's look at the one with the arcs, with the helical arcs. Okay, so here, wherever there are arcs and everything, it uses, instead of an X and Y, it uses IJK. So from the center point, go from here to here, kind of thing, go from here to here, go from here to here. So the circle cut is that circle cut, inside circle cut, is four passes. So if we look at this, this is the tool path for the same design with helical arcs. Okay, that's start to finish. Okay, from there to there. So more optimized toolpaths, smoother turns around corners and things at IJK increment and all. And, that's the advantage. Instead of that bit going from here to here to here to here to here to here to here, all the way around, it goes from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here. It goes from here straight across. Then from that arc, it goes from there to there, straight across. From there to there, straight across. From there to there straight across. So it's a much more optimized toolpath. So we've got our, our straight line arc and everything, straight line, to our arc and all. So it's just a much more optimized toolpath. That's all there is, So whichever one you want to choose there, buddy boy. I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully it did. All right. Getting back to where we were. So long story short, the few enhancements besides the new toolpaths, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. The new enhancements in 10.5 is our rectangle tool, being able to work with those outside radiuses and inside radiuses much smoother and stuff and everything. Our trim tool, now we don't have to keep pushing that left mouse button when we want to trim. Just hold it down and drag it over the lines that you want to trim. If any objects are grouped together, it will identify those grouped objects and it will ignore them while it trims everything else and all. So those are the kind of the two drawing enhancements within the software. From there, we have two new toolpaths. We have a thread milling toolpath and a chamfering toolpath. The thread milling toolpath is a way to create internal or external threads using either a single flute threading bit or a single cutter threading bit or a multi-cutter threading bit. There are some different enhancements within the thread definition as far as the pitch. Some of the more common pitches, the metric or UTS and things, quarter inch, 20, that type of thing. So UTS or metric, you can actually just, choose the pre-pitch settings and it'll program them in. Let's say our quarter inch thread settings, so it'll automatically adjust them based on the thread definition. You can choose if it's left-handed or right-handed threads. And again, you can do internal or external threads, right? And you need some type of threading tool, whether it be a single threaded tool, you know, that bird's mouth V-bit that basically comes out to the side, or it could be a multi-threaded tool that has, you know, multiple threads on it where it cuts. And so either or. My tool is a single threaded tool. It's from magnate.net. It's got a it's a 90 degree and everything, but you can use a multi-threaded tool or a single thread cutter tool. So that's pretty cool. The cut parameters, basically your start depth is you know, where you want that thread to start. So you might have a countersink, right? You might have a recess or a countersink, and then the threads are going to start in there. Or you might be just threading right straight from the top of the material down. So you can set your start depth and then the maximum depth. The maximum depth in there. And the thread length, basically kind of, because that bit has a bottom portion and everything, you have your maximum cut depth, but then the thread length, that cutter only cuts the last thread so far, so it'll identify that thread length. And, you know, if I was, you know, cutting 1/2 inch, my thread length, and notice it's grayed out here, it's not changeable. It just shows you what your thread length is, you know. And that tool on Magnate, let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Magnate.net. I have no affiliation with Magnate. They just have some really nice tools. And you know, so it, you know, if it's a good tool, then, you know, I'm going to recommend it, kind of deal. But if I pull over the web page here, whoa, it's huge. Their tool, this is a lot of people call it bird's mouth bit and all, but it's a thread cutting tool. This one is a 90 degree, 3/8 of an inch, you know, cutting height, 1/4 inch diameter shank, 1.5 inch overall length, and 5/8 of an inch overall diameter. It's about $18. It's a really nice thread cutting bit. You can buy multiple thread cutting bits and things as well. And, you know, but I haven't used a multiple thread cutting bit to see how that works and everything. So I can't really recommend one, but I use this a lot and I can recommend it. Okay. So, and everything. So the thread cutting tool is pretty cool. I'm sure that in upcoming classes, we'll probably make like a bench vise or something, or, you know, something cool where we can utilize this Toolpath. But you know, I'm not going to try to, you know, go over it too much right now. I just want to, you know, show you that you do have a lot of presets here. So you don't have to sit there and go, okay, what the hell's my pitch and diameter and things like that. They do have some common you know, like 1/4-20, you know, things like that and all that. But they do have some common bits and also metric as well. And, you know, if it's a custom, then you specify, you know, your pitch, diameter, fit tolerance, and things. Or you can just use some of the presets and it'll put that in for you. So it's a pretty cool new tool. I love it because the old way of creating a toolpath, let me draw a circle here, especially an internal thread. The old way of creating an internal thread was we would create a profile toolpath, and the helical arcs, the pass depth, when we did a, when it came to the ramp, the spiral ramp, not the spiral ramp, sorry, the smooth ramp, which was a circular ramp here, that What am I doing? I'm an idiot. No, it has nothing to do with ramps. My bits pass step, thank you very much. My bits pass step's right here. And based on my bit, the 90 degree, you know, that 90 degree magnet bit and everything, the pass step determined the pitch of that, it would be, you would use the spiral toolpath while you were doing it, but your pass step determined the pitch of that bit. And it was a little hard to kind of, nail down, especially when I was doing, the external threads, for the bolt that was going to go into that nut and stuff. And then when it created the toolpath, it didn't create an exit point where the bit would start in the center, come over, cut around and down, and then come back to the center and raise up. Oh no, it would come over to the start point, come straight down, immediately ruining the internal thread. It would come and cut, and then it would immediately come up, again, ruining the thread. We always had to alter the G code for the beginning and the end of that G code. We had to alter it to make it come in from the center, then come down or come over, and then slowly ramp down, and then at the end come back to the center before it lifted up. We had to alter that manually. Now we have a toolpath that does that for us. At the beginning and the end of the toolpath, it automatically creates that for us and everything, so that let me 1 inch diameter, maximum cut depth, let's go 0.5 inches, and let's go with a quarter 20 or a quarter. And internal thread, let's see here, lefty loosey, righty tighty, left, right-handed thread, calculate that toolpath. And here, let's reset that preview back to a blank board. You see that it starts in the center, then it starts to come around and do the threads, and at the very last pass, it comes here back to the center and raises up. Wonderful. It does all that for us. We don't have to sit there and manually, change it and everything. So very cool. Very cool things. Camara says, can the external threads, can you cut external threads for a 4th axis? Yeah, the external threads for a 4th axis rotary Camaro is basically a profile cut, a spiral profile cut with a pitch under the, if it was a wrap job, it would be the wrapping, it would be the spiral layout using a 90 degree V-bit, 60 degree V-bit, whatever, based on the internal thread bit cutting that you were doing. The internal threads or external threads here is like if I was making little screw-in buttons. Let's say I had a, I wanted to create some threads where, I had a decorative cap that screws into my material or whatever. I can create my internal threads, and then I can cut out some nice little caps and everything that screw into those threads to create nice little decorative elements and stuff. But if I'm doing it on a 4th axis, then I'm using a spiral layout with the appropriate V-bit to cut those external threads on that spindle or dowel or what have you. And if we ever do a bench vise, we would have to do that on a 4th axis, and you would see that layout, Camaro. But all right, so suicidal all times. Sorry if I'm off topic, but when you have a chance, is there a way to tilt more than 20 degrees other than manipulating the length and height? Is that on a suicidal? Is that on a when you're saying, is there more a way to tilt more than 20 degrees when manipulating, other than manipulating the length and the height? What are you tilting? Are you talking about like a rectangle? shape or something, what are we tilting? So let me know, and I'll answer that question, because I believe it's a good question. I don't think I'm understanding it exactly, what you're referring to. Like if I wanted to tilt a rectangular shape or something, or what am I tilting 20 degrees that would require me to manipulate the length and height, and then I'll answer that question. I'd be happy to. All right, so now I didn't want to really focus on the thread cutting toolpath. That's a toolpath for another day. I want to talk a little bit about the laser cutting and all that stuff, but let's talk about the chamfer toolpath, and then quickly I want to get into some of the Aspire modeling, the new tools in the modeling and stuff that has to kind of do with where we're at. So let me delete this. Let me get back to our layer 1 here, our sign and everything. Now I'm going to get into our chamfer toolpath here. So we now have an opportunity to, we used to have a chamfer gadget that did chamfering and everything. And now we have the ability to do chamfers. And let me draw 4 things real quick to go along with my internal chamfer there. Let me go 1/4 inch. And let's drop a 1/4 inch right there. Let's close this tool for a minute. And let me mirror that. Create a copy, flip about job center horizontally, vertically, horizontally. All right, so let's say that I'm gonna screw this and hang it on a wall, but I want to countersink. I want to make a really nice countersink for my screw heads and stuff. I want to do that on the table. So I want to do a nice little chamfer cut here, and then coming outward, and then I also want to kind of create my chamfer cut on here. This new chamfer toolpath allows me to do that. So on my start depth is 0. I have a choice. I actually can use a bit, a V bit, or I can use a ball nose, a tapered ball nose and stuff, to create my chamfer cut. If I don't have the appropriate angle V bit for what I'm wanting to chamfer and things, then I can also use a ball nose bit to create that chamfer. So that's pretty cool. Because sometimes I'd like a nicer slope or something, an angle, more narrow angle, and I don't have the appropriate V bit for that angle, so I would use a ball nose bit. But we have a cut depth, which the angle based on my V bit here, the angle is automatically put in. It's a 45-degree angle, so it's not changeable at all. Now the width, I can absolutely change how far I want that chamfer to come out and everything. And also my depth, how, from the top of that angle to the bottom of that angle, how, what's that depth that I want and everything. So I'd like just a nice, it's going to be weird the way the sign looks, but I want to do a nice external chamfer here. I want to go that 45-degree angles. I want to go 3. Let's see here. My cutting width, I want to go for the width of that chamfer. I'm going to go 1/2 inch wide. And on the cutting depth, 3. Okay, so because it's a 45, it's kind of keeping those aspect ratios locked together, and I can respect that. So I want to go 1/2 inch, so 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Yep, there we go. All right, so I want this to be an outside chamfer, so I have a choice, inside or outside. I want this to be outside, and I want to kind of chamfer out and down towards the edge of my material. And I can have it slope downward or slope upward. What that means is if I have a start depth, that's not 0, I can have that start depth where it's at it's at the bottom, if you will, to where it cuts my chamfer and then it cuts straight down to, whatever my start depth will be. If I have it slope upward, then there's that that start. I believe that's what it is. Let's look and find out. Let's calculate. I'm going to do slope downward, outward, outside, slope downward, and I'm going to calculate this toolpath. Okay, so let's look at this from the side here. And I'm starting at 0 cut depth. So it's starting at 0 and it's creating that outward chamfer. Okay, and everything. So, oops, I didn't want to do that. Trying to get it to where you guys can see the shade away. Let me see if view, use shaded background. I don't think that's the one that does it. Light follows the user. That doesn't help too much. But let's kind of get in here. All right, so on my board, I've got this nice, 1/2-inch chamfer and all, and I'm going to end up, probably profile cutting that out or something. Who knows? Who knows what I would do that chamfer for? Or I might just have it on recess. All right, now let's, on that chamfer, let's create a start depth instead. Let's go back to that chamfer tool and let's say, okay, let's start the chamfer at 1/8 of an inch down. And then I want to, cut 3/8 of an inch. 2 decimal points. Again, I'm going to outward and I'm going to slope downward. All right, let's reset that preview. And once again, let's see if we can, let's get rid of this side for a moment so we can get kind of big and personal here. All right, let's preview that cut. So it should start down and give me a lip, an 1/8-inch lip right there, and then start the chamfer. Very good. Let's reverse that and let's see what slope upward does. Okay, slope upward. So let's calculate that. And what that should do is let's reset that preview, preview the selected toolpath. Okay, so the looks of it is what would be the purpose for using that upward? So what it's done is on the outside, it's came down that 1/8 of an inch start depth. It plunged down and cut, and then it cut upward 3/8 of an inch and then raised up to create this lip. Interesting. So it kind of more so focused on the outside of the cut, and then it came up and then it cleared that up, kind of creating that upward cut from down below. Let's reset that. And let's go back into that toolpath, slope downward. And that should just automatically start on the inside of the cut, come down my 1/8 of an inch and then outward. Okay. So yeah, so when you're going upward, it comes on the outside of the cut and it comes down and then it slopes inward to whatever depth you specify, and then it kind of comes up and clears. Interesting. Not sure what application that would the slope upward. I'm not sure what application that would fall into, but I'm sure there's some other I'm sure there's some projects that it would be kind of interesting to see, what that would be. But all right, so I've got my downward slope there and everything. Let me do my, oops, let's close that tool. I'm just going to do a standard V carve. 0 flat depth, 60-degree V-bit. We'll turn that off. Calculate. Okay, preview that selected toolpath. All right, so I've got this kind of funky thing going on. My chamfer, I'm going to make that a little bit shallower. It's just, I don't know why. 3/8 just is too big for me. It's too much. Let's go back in here. Let's change that to 0.1875. Give me a decimal point. Okay. And I do like the little bit of an edge, but I'm actually going to have it come down a little bit more. 0.1. I'm going to have it start at 3/16. I like that little lip at the top. So we'll calculate that. Let's reset that preview. And let's preview those two toolpaths. Okay, so I kind of have that little recess going on there. And now I need to make my holes for screwing in my countersinks. Now these, there's going to be a regular drilling toolpath, a standard drilling toolpath. And I'll go back and answer you guys' questions. So don't forget, I hadn't forgot about you. There's going to be a standard drilling toolpath. I'm going to cut all the way through my material with a 1/4 inch end mill. I'm going to use pecking. I'm going to have it peck those holes out and kind of clean them out and everything. And we'll calculate that. So, you know, that's my drilling toolpath. But I want these to be nice and countersunk and everything. So I'm going to go into my chamfer toolpath here. And on my chamfer toolpath, I can decide on, you know, what bit I'm going to use. Okay, and I'll just use a 90. That's fine. And of course, what depth I want that chamfer to cut at. I'm not going to have a start depth. I want the chamfer to be kind of nice and flush with the top and everything. And I'll probably have it come down 1/4 on that. And, you know, we're not doing an inside chamfer. I'm going to do an outside chamfer. And let's see here. So that should slope down into the holes. I think that might be where the slope upwards have. Let's find out. Let's look at both of them. Let's calculate that toolpath and let's see if that, I don't know if that, okay. So you see what the calculate outward, that's not a countersink, right? So let's change that up. This is my first time using it, guys, so bear with me. Let's go slope upward and let's see if that is, I think it's going to be the inside cut. I think I'm a dumbass. Let's reset that preview and let's preview those two. Not save. Preview. Preview the visible toolpaths. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. So that's where the slope upwards would come in handy, creating that nice chamfer, or, you know, that nice countersink. So that makes sense. So my outside chamfer, probably 90% of the time I'd be sloping downward, of course. But when I'm doing countersinks, I'm sloping upward, That's where it plays a role. Okay, very cool. So let's go back and let's look at this overall sign here. Preview visible toolpaths, and my you know, I'd have to figure out how big my screw heads and everything were to see, you know, to kind of gauge, you know, what would be the best countersink. But I really love that now that we have that ability. And let's make some changes on our chamfer real quick for our little countersink. Let's see what the changes do. Let's go. I'm using a 1/2 inch end mill, so the deeper I go, the wider it gets. Right? So 1/2 inch diameter head. So let's go a little bit shallower. Say I'm using small 1/4 inch screws with a small head. Let's go with a 1/2 inch or an 1/8 inch countersink. Reset that preview, and let's see here. That, and that. Preview the visible toolpath. So we have our drilling and then our countersink. Yeah, cool. So those are some of the options and benefits and things, and some of the new things that are in our that's kind of applicable all the way across the board for Desktop Pro and Aspire. All of these options and everything. And then we also have our laser module, which I'm kind of leaving that for the last minute because I want to do a whole class just on this. I'd like to do a project next week just on the laser, but I do want to touch on it tonight. So let's see here. Yes, the tilt and fade function in the model functions is what he's referring to. So when he was asking, sorry if I'm off topic, but is there a way to tilt more than 20 degrees other than manipulating the length and the height? When it comes to modeling, which was off topic, that's cool. It threw me off. That's why I didn't know if it was relating to anything that we were doing and all, but that's cool. Because I want to talk about modeling here in a minute. Let's get some a model in here. Where's my clip art at? Okay. I'm going to go into the 3D view, and I'm going to click on this little blue square down here. That'll give me the properties here. So when it comes to the tilt, you're asking, basically the question was, so everybody knows, let's go back. It says basically, sorry if I'm off topic. Is there a way to tilt more than 20 degrees other than manipulating the length and the height? Basically what he's referring to is when you're tilting, it's like sticking a wedge under your model. The first place that you click, so when I go to set, the first place that I click is going to be the thin part of the wedge. The second place is the thick part of the wedge. So if I click here first and then here second, that means I'm sticking the thick part of the wedge down here. So it's going to be tilting the bottom end of this apple upward. The 20 degrees that he's asking about is there a way to tilt more than 20 degrees in things? You should be able to, that would be your drag and everything, but you should be able to type in there manually to make a change, but I didn't see any change there. Let me go 60 degrees. I'm not seeing any significant change in that tilt. Let me see here. All right, let's go back to 0. And let's move this over here, and let's move this over here, and let's kind of zoom in on this so we can see it. All right, so my 20-degree tilt, okay, is there. All right, let's look at this down the x-axis. Let's zoom in on this. All right, so this is a 20-degree tilt here. And if I go 60 degrees, no change. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it changed. Yeah, you can type in the degrees, suicidal. And if I went, let's see here, if I went 30 degrees, and I wonder what 90 degrees would do. Let's go 90. I think that would probably be about the maximum that it would allow it to tilt. Yeah. So basically it's creating a 90-degree wedge here, you know. So yeah, you can type in that number, suicidal. Let's go 45. And then of course, let's go 30. Yeah, so you can type it in. Just the slide bar, you know, is kind of, you know, you have that slide range and stuff, and all. So just type it in. All right, so that was a good question. All right. It did. Okay, let's see here. Let's see here. Tom says, not sure the benefit of the chamfer toolpath, as I previously used a profile toolpath with a V-bit. Yeah, you know, you can do a, so Tom says, you know, I'm not sure exactly the benefit of the chamfer toolpath because I use a profile toolpath with a V-bit. Well, let's go back to our design here. And let's say in that chamfer tool, Tom, I think that was Tom. So yeah, Tom, let's say that I want to use, I want a much wider angle and everything. Let's go in here and I'm going to use my, what am I going to use? Select. Use a 1/4-inch ball nose. Okay. Now I'm going to use my ball nose instead of a V-bit. I want a 22. Let me see here. I want to go 22.5 degrees. Or let's go, bear with me, I'm going to try to figure out a nice, let's go 75 degrees. My cut depth on that angle, let's let it go up to 1/4 inch, and then that'll adjust my cut width. I want to be on the outside here, and I want to slope downward and calculate that toolpath. Let's reset that preview and preview that selected toolpath. and that is my 75 degrees. Let's go a little bit, let's go 22. Width, cut depth. Let's go a little deeper this time, 1/2 inch. I like how the ratio here, it's automatically adjusted. Like for instance, if I had this, you know, 0.125, it kind of adjusts the cut depth accordingly. You know, those two, you see how they're grayed out. So we have our angle and we have a cut depth, and it kind of adjusts the width, you know, and the max cut depth automatically. They're kind of grayed out, but it still does allow me, because I can choose between depth or width. You know, in this case, I want to choose kind of width or depth, and I'm going to choose a 1/2 inch, and it'll automatically adjust the width accordingly to get that 22.5 degree angle. And you know, of course, I could use a 22 degree V bit, right? You know, with a profile cut. So let's change this up to 65 degrees, whatever. And let's reset that preview. I'm probably a little outside of my board. Ooh, just barely outside of my board there. Let's preview that cut. Okay. Now I need to change my step over to kind of clean that up. So I've got my angle there, but it did kind of a rough cut because let's see here. 65 degree angle. Let me see what it's doing here. Yeah, there we go. All right, so it's interesting. I must not have a parameter set correctly. Let me see here. I want a nice chamfer coming outward. So let me look at my settings. Let me see what I've got here. So I'm using a 1/4 inch ball nose. My depth, start depth is 0. My width, let's change that, which is going to adjust my cut depth. I'm going to be doing an outside cut, sloping downward, calculate, reset the preview that toolpath. I wonder if the 10.504 cleared that, if that's a glitch, because I'm seeing my ball come out, but I'm not getting that chamfer, and I'm not seeing All right, let's quickly just so we don't waste too much time on this. Let's go to the Get Help on this tool to learn more about the chamfering toolpath. There's in the manual, there's instructions and everything on it. So the angle determines the slope of the chamfer. It measures from the vertical. For a V-bit tool, then the angle is fixed to half of the tool of the length. For round nose tools, then the angle may be specified. Okay. Yep. So it's just basically saying that you can specify your own angle. The width determines the horizontal side of the chamfer. If the angle is set, then changing the width will change the cut depth. Okay, so it's just saying those are locked together proportionally. We know that. The cut depth is the height of the chamfer. If the angle is set, then changing the cut depth will change the width appropriately. Okay. And to achieve the desired height of the chamfer, as specified with the cut depth field, cutting deeper might be required. Okay. Yep. So cutting, you set your depth a little bit deeper, especially when you're doing like countersinks and all. This will be true in the case of a round nose. Okay. So in order to achieve a desired cutting height of the chamfer, then cutting deeper would be required. This would be true in the case of using a round nose tool. So we would have to, in order to get that chamfer, we would have to cut deeper so that because the tool has got a round nose instead of a point. So if there's a particular height that we want that nice angle to go to, then we would cut deeper so that the round nose tip is lower. The max cut depth field is read only. Yep. So you can't change any of that. An inside chamfer will do an inside chamfer, of course. Outside will do the outside. That's wonderful. Okay. So our cut depth needs to be specified deeper for a ball nose bit. I'm just looking to see if the selected tool is a round nose, then the angle of the chamfer must be specified manually and will be approximated by the series of fine cuts. Okay. So let's go back to our Vectric. And so basically, if I want my, what's a good angle? 90 would be straight up and down. 60, let's just, for an example here for a moment, I'm using a 1/4 inch ball nose. Oh, let me try a smaller ball nose. Let's go with an 1/8 inch ball nose. 60 degree, and I want my width. Let's go in here and my cutting depth, I want to go past 1/4, so I'm going to go 0.3. Right, that would be 5,000 steeper. Let's go 0.315. Okay, so that'll give me a width of about 1/2 inch. And let's calculate that and preview that cut. Okay. All right, so I'm getting my depth and everything, but I'm getting these stair steps here, right? So let's tighten up our step over. And I'll just leave that the same. I'm going to tighten up the step over and calculate that. Still getting that series of stair steps. I think I'd have to update to, when we jump into the Aspire, remind me to go back and try that again and see if it does, because it's giving me stair steps and there's no options in the chamfer tool here to, that would change that. Let's try it. upward. Let's see what the hell that does. Calculate. Nope, still getting the stair steps there. So that is an interesting question, Tom, that you pose. You know, what would be the benefit of it? I know the benefit of it with countersinks and all that. You know, other than using a profile cut and everything, unless the 10.504 patch repair repaired this. If it was a glitch, I'd have to update and find out, because I'm not seeing, and I haven't used it before. This is all brand new to me too. So we're experimenting together. An outside cut should give me a nice cut, but I'm getting stair steps, and I can see it in the toolpath. Oops, I had the wrong thing selected. Let's try that again. I can see it in the toolpath. Here, not only there, but when I come in here and tilt, I can see those stair steps. So it's not really creating a continuous run. It looks like it should, the way that they passes overlap. However, that's not the results that it's getting. Now, this could be a result of, no, I think my preview simulation quality is turned up high. Yeah, you see that it's getting the, you know, it's getting the, it's clearing that path. But it's not a nice, smooth chamfer. So the question would be, let that finish, would be, the question would be, is this a result of my Toolpath simulation quality? All right, I'm in standard mode here. Let me turn up the simulation quality a little bit. Okay. Let's preview that selected toolpath again. And I can tell right now it's still going to do the same thing. I'll let it do the first two passes. We won't watch this all the way through, but it's going to come out to here, and then it's going to come back and do that second angle cut. And let's see what that looks like. So I'll have to check and see if that's a Camaro. Yeah, you can change your angle to anything depending on the it would be a ball nose bit that you're using. Yeah, Sylvia, I know. Yeah, is it caused by the bit? Yes. Right now it's being caused by the bit. We'll see on the second pass. If that second pass, based on the Toolpath simulation quality, if it's not a clean transition where a nice angle, then we'll see that. I thought I did what you're trying to do the other day, and it worked. Don't ask me how. Okay. Let's see here. It's about to start the second pass. Okay, so there's still a stair step there. I'm not seeing a nice transition. That I'm going to have to come back to. I'm going to have to talk with Vectric and all and find out how do you achieve a nice smooth transfer with a ball nose bit. I mean, I have a tight step over. I'm stepping over 2% of that 1/8 inch bit, but it's producing these staircases. Now, Is that something that was repaired in 10.504? I don't know, right? I haven't updated it and all. Who knows? So I will run that same toolpath when I open up the Aspire here in a second, and then we'll kind of go from there. Now, it's getting to be, we're about 2 hours and 29 minutes in, so let's kind of race through this. We'll come back and visit it. I do like the chamfer toolpath for the countersinking, and if I was using a V-bit so far, hey, you know, bang up, it does well in everything. The one thing that I would probably like to see is how to use a ball nose bit so I can adjust my slopes accordingly. You know, I might want to, you know, a different slope. I'd like to be able to use the ball nose bit for that to create that profile, but I don't want stair steps, right? So let's, you know, we'll figure out, you know, what that does. Okay. Okay, Tom says I use Aspire. That might be where it would work for me. I've got my Aspires updated to the 10.504, so we'll try that. Suicidal. If the height is 1 inch and the length is 1 inch, the angle has to be 45 degrees. But if he sets the depth of cut for 2 inches, it will have to do 2 passes. Sure. You might be talking to someone else. I'm throwing these comments up and everything. If at Aspire 9.5, you do an upgrade to 10.5 download, just 10.5. You do not jump if you're at 9.5, William, and you download the latest version, it's going to take you to version 10.5. You jump right past 10. So when you buy, or if you pay for the upgrade, there's no 10. You would jump straight to 10.504 or 10.5. All right, let's come out of this and let's go into the Aspire. My Aspire is up to date. And let's create a new file. Let's go 20 by 16 by 3/4. Click OK. All right. Quickly, I just want to I don't know what the hell that was about. Let's get that centered. All right, this is 10.504, so I quickly want to just come in here real quick. Start depth of 0. I'm going to use a we'll use an 1/8 inch ball nose. I'll tighten up the step over. Angle, let's go, hell, even 60 degrees. I want to go outward. Let's go 0.375. Let's go 3/8 and see if we get any steps. Calculate that toolpath. Okay. So the one thing I can see here is I've still got those. If I come in here, I've still got those steps, but let's preview it and let's see what, let's turn our preview simulation quality. I'll just go very high, you know, nothing basic, and preview the toolpath. Let's see if there's any difference. Nope. So the 10.504 is not doing it for me. I would think that it would do, you know, I mean, I can create a chamfer toolpath, just drawing vectors and everything and get a much better result than that. You know, so this is one toolpath that I'm going to have to ask Vectric about, and have them show me how to get that nice clean transition, because you know, that's not what I would want in that cut. So that's not what I don't call that a chamfer. So I want that nice clean angle cut. So maybe it's a setting, maybe it's something, but when I'm using a ball nose bit, I would expect a much better result than that, right? Especially stepping over 2% of that tip of that ball. So that's a question. That's great. That's things that we learn, things we're going to ask. So it's something that I'm going to ask Vectric, and when I find the answer, I'll get back to you. All right. Last thing, not last thing, but I really want to come back here, and let's delete this and let's get back over here. In the Vectric Aspire, so everything that we did earlier can be done in Desktop Pro and Aspire. All the chamfer toolpath, the thread milling toolpath, the enhancements to the drawing tools and everything, the way we group toolpaths and we can save them now, all of those enhancements are in 10.5. When it comes to the Vectric, let me draw I need this to be 6 sides. I'm going to draw a couple of shapes. And let's get that centered. Okay, so it looks almost like a nut. Well, I also want to draw a rectangle around my job. Let's do, instead of a rectangle, let's do a nice little ellipse. Right about there. And let's offset that ellipse inward by a ½ inch. Actually, I don't need to do that. Let's delete that. All right. So 2 of the new tools that are in the Vectric Aspire is under the Create Shape tools, and let's go full screen on this. We have 2 very cool new tools here. Before, we had a dome profile shape, you know, curved profile. We had an angular profile, and we had a flat profile. Now we have a conical, kind of a concave, if you will, curve to a conical point, and we have a convex curve to kind of a rounded point here. And this is so far the only thing that I've used it with is creating nice panels and shields and things like that, panels and stuff. But we have a pretty cool tool. Let's look at the first tool here. It's called the concave profile. And I'm going to do a concave profile from here to here, this circle. And I'm going to have that concave profile, I'm going to have it blend from this outer vector. It's going to have these nice straight lines coming up, but then it's going to round off and blend with the rounded shape of the model here to this point. And I'm going to limit the height to a ½ inch. Yeah, that'll be good. And if we split the view, or let's go just into 3D view here, and let's close our, reset our preview and close out of that. Reset, close, and let's get back into full view here. Yeah. All right. So in that tool there, if I go ahead and apply this, now I'm blending from that octagon or the hexagon, yeah. into that circular shape. I'm limiting the cut to a 1/2 inch. So that means it should flatten it off at a 1/2 inch up. And what that's going to do is it should give me kind of this, oh, I wish we could see it a little bit better. Let me zoom in here. Probably need to change my material for you guys. Let's not limit the shape height just for a minute so you can kind of see what the shape does. Let's go let's go the full 3/4 and click apply. All right. So what this does is I've got this nice, you know, hexagon, right? 6 hexagon shape here. And then it's going to blend up with my nice edges and everything. It's a concave, so it's actually got a curvature to it. If we were kind of to look at it from the side, let it regenerate. Give me a second. It's got a nice concave and everything, and then it limits to my the top of my board. So it's a nice concave profile, but it gives me those nice, sharp, kind of defined edges and all, which is pretty cool. Now, if I limit my height, smaller, then I'm just going to get that shape. The smooth profile, instead of that concave cut, basically it comes in and it smooths off and rounds off to that rounded edge and everything on that part. It's not so rigid around the edges like the concave kept that nice round ridge, right, where it just blended into that circle. The circle was flat and it blended into that circle. The smooth profile just creates that nice rounded smooth transition and everything for the part and all. So if I had no limit on this part here, if I had no limit and had those two objects selected, it would create a between. Let's turn off one of the objects. Let's turn off the circular shape here. We'll turn that off as soon as it catches up. Nice way to make some mountain ranges with a lake in the middle. All right, so there we go. All right, in our 3D view, basically the smooth profile, if we go to our 3D view tab, I don't want to freeze up. That hexagon shape is basically, kind of folding up into itself here, kind of creating these inner ridges, this kind of V shape, that smooth profile, it's kind of creating that crease there. If it were just a simple rounded profile, that smooth shape, if we go back to our 3D view, would basically create like a, just a simple smooth transition of a little cap there. And the concave shape would create that, kind of that spinning top point, which would be pretty cool if you were making spinning tops, right? And everything, that'd be pretty cool. But utilizing these a little bit differently, I want to do my oval here. I'm making a panel, like an oval panel. I want a nice radius cut, a little round over. Basically, let's get back to me for a second here. I want a nice little, on my edges of my board, that cutout that's getting cut out. I want a nice little transition and then flat panel that I'm going to be carving my design or model into. So I want some nice edge work. Now I could use a bowl bit or a ball bit, not a ball nose bit, but a round nose bit or something. And I could just create that as a profile cut and everything, but I'm modeling. So I want to build the model. And with the concave, let's go back to there. I am going to create nose base height from 0 on this concave. I'm going to limit the height on this concave. I'm going to limit the height, and I'm going to limit it to a 1/4 of an inch. So let's change that to a 1/4. And I'm going to click apply. And if we go into our 3D view, what I should have is on that ellipse, which I'm going to end up doing a profile cut to cut it out. But what I should have is this nice transition here to my flat panel. Now let's give it a little bit of base height. Let's give it a little bit of base height. Let's give it, if that's a 1/4 inch, let's go 0.25. We'll go 1/4 of an inch base height so you can kind of really see the panel. Click apply. Let that build that up. And all right, so we've got this nice transition here. Think of about like a bottom of a plate, right? This is the bottom transition of a plate or a platter, you know, what have you. Now, if I subtract this cut, then I actually am making a plate or a platter. Let's come in here, let that regenerate. And, you know, I'm transitioning down and then flattening out at the bottom. I'm making kind of like a little plate or a platter, if you will. So it's that nice rounded curved transition, little curve there, outside curve, and then it flattens out and stuff. So if I'm making commemorative plates or dishes or whatever, I could do that, you know, where it's kind of sunk down, carve somebody's name in it or whatever. But if I'm adding, if it's an add, then I'm making that panel and shield, it's raised up. Now, I may not want that concave curve. I may just want a nice kind of a smooth transition to limit here. So I could do my smooth profile and let that regenerate. I might not want that nice little bevel, that little curve in there. I might just want a nice smooth profile. There we go. And now what that's done is that rounded edge is much more smooth. It's much more defined instead of being kind of flat like the concave was, where it's kind of a little angular. And I'll move this around as soon as it's done generating. Let's come in here. So we've got more of a smoother curvature transition, a kind of a smooth transition instead of a subtle transition to that flat depth that the concave does. My smooth transition comes in. And again, if I were making kind of a platter or something, then if I were subtracting this, then it's more curved here. It's kind of an outward curve, and then it comes to that flat. So commemorative plates and things where you kind of carve around the edges, panels and shields. In the case of, let's do it with a common shape that you guys would more recognize as a panel or shield. Let's go into our clip art. And let's go with 2D vectors. And let's grab what would be a good one? Let's grab this guy. This guy is fine. Okay, just to give you a general idea. All right, let's size him up. And on this, I want just a nice transition because I want this to be a sign. I want a nice transition coming up. I'm going to give it a base height of let's go 3/8 of an inch. I want to limit the height to 3/8 of an inch. And I want to do an add and a smooth profile. So we'll click apply on that. Let it build that shape up. Yeah, while we're letting that calculate, Blue Knight says, yes, I did. Blue Knight, I surely did. Thanks to the guys and girls at Staples Office Supply, they were able to pull it off. And they actually, the laptop hard drive, they actually were able to plug it in. They were actually able to, I don't know what they did, but they were actually able to get the main screen to load up. But as far as, they took out the hard drive and they plugged it in, they were actually able to be able to see stuff and all. But the rest of the laptop was gone. But yes, I got my files off my laptop, and now everything is on Carbonite. And I bought 2 additional Seagate portable backup drives. Don't want to do that again. All right, let's get into the 3D view. So thanks for asking. That was pretty cool. I appreciate that. So on my design here, you see that kind of concave shape and everything that's created. Or smooth shape and all. Well, let's change that to a concave. Here we go. And basically, it's kind of creating this, off the wall shape here. It's creating that curve. Well, I don't want that. I want more of a panel shield. I want my internal border to be the same as the outside border. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, hold down my Control and Shift key, and I'm going to pull in. Let's do an offset. I think the offset tool, I think it's going to look the same, but let's go offset. Inward, a 1/2 inch. There we go. Yeah, the offset tool is much better for that. And now I'm going to go back to my modeling tool, and I'm going to select my outside, then my inside. I'm going to blend the inner vectors. We'll keep the height there and click apply. And we get that nice, pretty shield looking panel there where it's got that nice concave in there. And if it was a curve, we'd have that curve shape where it's more rounded. You can see that kind of rounded edge. Let's zoom into the edges so you guys can see. More rounded. And if I did my standard angular profile, that's more kind of a chamfer coming in, right? And if I did my curved profile, it's more of a kind of a dome round over, on those edge profiles. If I did a flat profile, which I don't think that would do it, it's just do a flat edge around the edge. But now I have the ability to do that concave, really nice transitions and things with my, my shields or panels. And because, in the clip art, we have a whole gallery called Panels and Shields, right? There's a lot of different models of a variety of different panels and shields. And these panels and shields, lots of different shapes. But I may want, I might want to customize my own shape. And now getting that nice built into the model, that nice angular or concave profile or smooth profile, if it was kind of rounded instead of and everything, those are nice new tools. I like them. There's a lot of benefits. We'll create a project where it really shines and stuff, but those are the two new tools in the Vectric Aspire modeling side of the tools, and that being able to blend your inner shapes and everything, where it creates kind of a smooth transition. I mean, hell, even if my inner shape here wasn't, the same, whatever it may be. Let me get it centered in there. And if I selected this profile, then that profile, then I could blend from one to the other, and we'll do a smooth profile. Whether I add or subtract, or merge or what have you, but I can create. It's hard to see with that one, but I can create those hard edges coming up, from my corners and everything, but they transition into a smooth edge. Now, this isn't the best example to show this in. There are other applications where this would really shine, but I'm just kind of trying to give you a general idea. And all of these things, we're going to have projects coming up here. Next week, I'd like to do a project on the laser module. So you guys can see that and see how that works and all. But as far as Aspire goes, everything we covered in Vectric V10.5 Desktop or Pro earlier, all that can be done in Aspire. And then, of course, in the modeling, we have two new tools. When it comes to the Toolpath, we still have, the new tools, the chamfer and everything. The way that we can merge groups together, or group things together and all that's the same and stuff. So we have some nice enhancements. There are other enhancements in Aspire, but I don't have them right now. All right, let's talk real quick and then let's end it today, because we're already 2 hours 50. This has gone on way too long for tonight. This is going to be a two-part thing. All right, laser cutting tool. For those of you, especially if you are digital woodcarver customers out there watching and everything, you probably you may or may not have the digital laser. If you have it, then when you've been laser engraving, you've been using a profile cut or a pocket cut or even the quick engraving tool. Profile cut when you're doing an outline with the laser, pocket cut when you were doing an engraving with the laser, or a quick engraving where you're doing an outline or a fill. Both of them are kind of the same thing. Well, now with those old with the other way, it was a hard toolpath, right? It was so, we had our laser tool, we had a power setting and a feed rate, and based on that power setting and the feed rate, we would get a certain cut, however deep it would be, and things like that. Well, now we have the ability to kind of almost work with images and models to do some shading. So rather than working with, and let me get real quick, let me import my tool. For the ladies and gentlemen that are digital woodcarver customers, on the digital woodcarver website, under support and downloads, there is the 2020 files are up to date. Setup files, you can download those, and in the tool profiles, the new laser module tool is in there. So you can, so you'll have that with the settings for that laser module tool, that 6-watt laser. So what this does is, let me grab an image, file, import a bitmap. It can be black and white. It could be color. It could be, you know, whatever, you know, you wanted it to be. I don't want that one. That would be a cool one, but that's a project for another day. Let's see here. All right, who's that handsome guy right there? We'll use that picture. Not my greatest picture, but it'll work for educational purposes. Let's size that down, and let's get rid of. That's when I was rocking a beard. All right, let's size that down and let's get that over here. All right, so now we have the option in our tools over here to work with an image editor, a picture editor, if we need to change anything or grayscale it or anything like that. But we don't. It's not necessarily required. In our settings here on my power setting is not for you guys and girls that do own the digital woodcarver laser. Your power settings for 1 to 10, right? Well, in the laser module, it's 0 to 100. It works on percentage. So let's say on my maximum power, I'm going to go 80%. And my minimum power off, basically 0. And my move speed, I'll travel at, let's go 55. Now I have a choice of doing kind of a raster lines, kind of a hatch pattern, or using selected vectors. Like if I've traced an image and on, I can use those selected vectors. I'm going to do a raster pattern. Now dithering, we have the option of doing a dithering, which kind of creates like this, these little speckles or points and things. But I'm not going to dither this image, and I'm going to create a very dense set of lines. I want my laser cutting a very dense set of lines here. And on the line angle, oh, hell, let's go 45. All right. From there, if I was doing shading on a 3D model, like imagine if I carved a model and I wanted to do some shading on there and kind of highlight some of the, you know, the areas of that model. If it was a 3D model, I could project onto a 3D toolpath, which we're going to do a class on that next week. We're actually going to create a 3D model and do that. And we'll probably do it in VCarve Pro. We're not going to create a model from scratch. We'll just use you know, an existing model that I made already that I can import in. But this is not a 3D model, so we don't need to do it. I'm not going to save it straight from here. We have the ability to save it straight from here. I'm just going to calculate that. And unable to calculate the toolpath, resulting the toolpath would be too large. Okay, so let's reduce my density a bit. And calculate. Okay. Now, so this is kind of the preview result and everything. Now, before we get into it, let's pack up a little bit. I'm going to open this back up for a second. And I want to talk to you about your tool settings. The maximum burn rate in your tool database. So you have your maximum power wattage. You have the kerf of your laser beam based on, you know, single pass. You know, you have your power percentage is your whatever your default's going to be. I've got 80% in here. Your move rate, but then there's a maximum burn rate. Now, this maximum burn rate has nothing to do with the actual toolpath that gets generated to cut, but it does have to do with the toolpath preview. The higher the number, the higher this number is, the darker that preview is going to turn out in the 3D preview. Okay. I've got the burn rate set right now as a default of 500. So if we were to close out of this and come into the toolpath preview, if we were to, let's get Canadian maple, and let's turn off the, oops, don't turn off the color shaded view. Yeah, that's good. Okay. If we were to preview the selected toolpath, it's going to laser engrave at an angle, in my case, 45-degree angle. But how dark this shows up in this simulation is basically going to be based on that maximum burn rate in the tool for the tool database. Now, I might freeze up a little bit while this is calculating. You know, Aspire, it's taking a lot, but this will kind of show that, you know, that burn rate. If you need your simulation a little bit darker, then you can increase that maximum burn rate, because it doesn't have anything to do with your actual, like the toolpath that gets created. It's just it's for the simulation only. Let's see here. Looks like you have to edit the pass depth of the ball nose for it to be a smooth cut chamfer. Michael Bell popped in earlier, or, you know, said, looks like you'll have to edit the pass depth of the ball nose for it to be a smooth transition. So we didn't try that and everything. And therefore, yeah, that could be something. Changing the pass depth. I had the pass depth set for a 1/16 of an inch per pass. May have to change the pass depth to very small, so it's a nice step over. So that's a good thing, Michael. Thanks for throwing that in there. Real quick to answer some questions. Is there a way to reduce the size of a save file? Is it better to save the design without the toolpath? And second, is there a way to use math to draw something like the Fibonacci spirals? There is a spiraling gadget that you can use in the Vectric software under the gadgets library. If you don't have it installed, just go to About Gadgets and go to the gadget library, and there's a spiral gadget for creating spirals, like the Fibonacci spirals and stuff. But I'm sure in your drawing, I'm sure there is a way, but that's a class all by itself, Suicidal. We can discuss that when we do a class on drawing and everything. That's all by itself. That's not one that I can answer right now. But there is a spiral toolpath that does that altogether, importantly. All right, Michael Smith says, I don't see a laser toolpath in my VCarve Pro. Well, if you've updated to 10.5, it's not an automatic add-on. You would have to pay for the laser module. The laser module is $49, I believe. It's $49 or $69, I think. If any one of you know the price, throw it in the chat room. I think it's $49 or $69, one of the two. But you have to buy that. It's an add-on for that laser tool. It doesn't come free with the 10.5. It's an add-on. The laser module is an add-on, and it's about $45 or $46 or $64. I'm dyslexic. I got it. One of those two. It's one of those two. You would have to pay for that module add-on. Now, in the shading here, let's see if we can find a lighter color material. Why are all my colors so dark? Here, let me go to view here. Light follows user. My screen is so dark when it's so big. Let me go up to kind of a use a solid color. It's more gray than white, right? All right, so you see, and oops, sorry. Okay. Mike Smith, it's a paid add-on. So you see how dark that shading is in the 3D view. So if we were to increase in the tool, if I were to increase that, that maximum burn rate and everything, and if I were to calculate that toolpath, and reset that preview and preview that selected toolpath. Based on that maximum burn rate is going to depend on how my preview, only simulation only, guys, simulation only, how my preview is going to result. Now, as far as when it comes to the actual carving, the combination of your power, at the highest power and lowest power, all the dark areas, it's gonna range from, in my case, from 0 to 100%, and you can change that range, or 0 to 80%. It's going to range in there when creating the toolpath, and in the light areas, it's going to lower the power to cut lighter. In the dark areas, it's going to increase the power to cut deep darker, so that we get that nice shading when we're doing image engraving. We really, before this, especially for your digital wood carver customers and all, you didn't really have a good way of getting, to laser engrave images in things and get that nice shading where you get those black and whites, or, those light burns and dark burns and all for the dark and light areas of the image. But not only can we utilize this for doing images now, the laser module, but we can also shade 3D models. I'm going to so now you see how dark that result is based on the burn rate, how dark that result is in the 3D view. One more time, the last time, I'm going to go into my tool and I'm going to turn that down to, we were at 500, right? So I'm going to go, let's go 300, just so you can see. So look how dark it is here, right? In this preview. Let's calculate this one more time. We've changed that burn rate, that maximum burn rate, to 300. Now we've lowered it. And if I reset the preview and preview that selected toolpath again, let it go through and all. But Edward Snow says, is it out for purchase? I couldn't find it on the website, Vectric site. When you purchased, bear with me a second, Vectric.com. Purchase. Under here, let me get let me scroll this over here. On the Vectric.com website, go to products, go down to laser. Let me get Ed's comment on there. Go to products, go down to laser module. It'll take you to the laser module page. There's a neat little kind of introductory video on the laser module. There's a kind of a sample of shading a 3D model. Pretty cool. Here's some other things, right? Laser module. But it's $49. So you can log into your account to buy it because you have to have the Vectric software. So it'll have you log in, and then it'll take you to the screen to buy it. Okay. So that's the laser module. But yeah, you can do some cool things. We're going to create a project now. The video, let's see, is this the video? That's kind of a sample, but in your Vectric VNCO account, or no, I'm sorry, what am I saying? On YouTube, youtube.com, I believe they've got it released by now. Man, it's so slow. Sorry, guys. We're closing out right after then in 2 minutes, really, after this. Why is my internet so slow? It's not my internet. It's everything that's going on with that large screen. Vectric. Resolution is horrible. Come on now. Vectric laser module. You guys ever watch Twitch? MXR Plays right here. These two, they're gamers. Husband and wife. She's a doctor. He's I don't know what he does. Where'd it go? Oh, anyway, went away. MXR Plays. They are the funniest couple. They're the sweetest couple in the whole wide world. Their videos are crazy. They're always comparing different things on Reddit and Twitch, and but they used to do a cooking thing together. But they do funny videos and all. But my God, they are this. If I ever was in a relationship, that would be the way that they play with each other and talk, and the affectionate, and just how they are. And she's so cool and funny. She's pretty cool. She's a gamer girl. She's pretty cool on Twitch. But anyway, great couple. MXR Plays. If you guys ever want to see something fun and funny. Okay, so where are we at here? I want right here. The Vectric Tutorials Laser Picture Tiger Face video right there. If you want to kind of get a glimpse of, using the laser module to shade 3D models, this is a good kind of example. Now, in this example, the gentleman is using a spire, and he made the model, or he kind of improved the model a little bit. But you can apply this same application. You can apply this same application to models that you've bought on Etsy, eBay, design and make. Oh, I got the hiccups now because I was getting so excited. You can talk about, or any of the models that are in your gallery that you have already. You can do laser shading to kind of like highlight some of the accents of the model area and stuff. And this is just to give you an example. The Vectric Tutorials Laser Picture Tiger Face is a good example. But now understand that he's in a spire, so he's kind of puffing up and building the model. Don't sit there and go, oh, I can't do that because I don't have a spire. If you have the VCarve Pro 10.5 with the laser module, you can do 3D shading and everything with the laser module. You just can't build that model like he was doing, but you can do it on existing models. And it's a cool, neat feature, because sometimes, there might be some areas, like if you were able to just kind of accent it a little bit with some shading, that that it would really make that model pop, you know, that type of thing. So it's pretty cool, but it's called the Laser Picture Tiger Face. Check it out. Next week or next Tuesday, we're going to do a model project with the laser module and everything. And yeah. And if you're into funny videos and just you know, humor and cool couple, MXR Plays, I got to give them a shout out. They're fun. They're cool. They're cool. All right, so that's it. Now, all right, there's the 300, right? So you see how light it is in the preview. So that's what the maximum burn rate does. So we just circled all the way back to that. I would say probably about 500 of the maximum burn rate. 500, 1200 is kind of like the max I would be at, you know, on the burn rate. So 500 somewhere would be give you a nice, decent preview image, okay, of that laser module. So the maximum burn rate. And once again, you will find that under your tool. You put in your wattage of your tool, maximum watts. You put in the kerf of your laser. In our case of our laser, digital laser for you guys and girls that are digital recovers, it's 0.005. Number of passes, 1. Your power is from 0 to 100%. In my case, as a default, I have it set to 80. Your inches per minute is your feed units. Move speed is a default. I've got it set to 55. You guys can set that and change it to whatever you want. But the maximum burn rate, that has nothing to do with the actual tool path itself as far as running. It has to do with the simulation. Okay, so the higher the number, the darker the simulation will look. All right, everybody. So this was just a quick and dirty overlook of some of the things that came out in 10.5. In no way was this, I mean, even though it was 3 hours long, 3 hours and 21 minutes long, that it was detailed where we actually created a project or, you know, a real project with these things. So next week, we're going to create a 3D model project. I'm going to use Pro. I'm not going to use Aspire. We're going to create a 3D model project and do some shading on it and stuff, but show you how you can use an existing project and all, and all that wonderful jazz. I will check Michael Bell. I will check on changing the pass depth on the chamfer, and I'll let you guys know next week how that goes. But I'm also going to talk with Vectric about that and see, you know, if there's something else that needs to be changed or adjusted. But Michael, that's a good insight, so we'll look into that. All right. Let's see here. All right. In the meantime, that is it. We're all done for kind of a look through. Again, a quick and dirty look through. Sorry it was 3 hours, guys. And whoever hung out, you 29 folks that hung out, 30 folks that hung out, hey, good on you. Thanks for sticking with me. Get some rest. It's been a long day, long night. Until next week, I'll see you soon. And then we're going to start implementing some of these old and new features. We're going to create some projects. We're going to get back to creating some projects and stuff. Next week, we're going to do a kind of a hybrid carving with a little bit of laser. The laser is optional, right? So if you don't have a laser or whatever, you could still do the carving part, right? We're going to learn we're going to create a model project and everything and all. So you know, hopefully you like it. And the last thing is on my saying goodbye is I'm going to show you that for any of you, this is kind of my little pitch, right? My little pitch. You know, Spindle TV does one-on-one training. You can subscribe to that one-on-one training either $10 a month or $110 a year to get one-on-one training with me. Your training sessions are recorded, video recorded, so you get a video at the end of that training session. You can you know, schedule any time, day or night. If the time slot is open, and you get 2 free projects each month to emailed to you as part of that. And if you're paying monthly, it's 1 hour a month of training, one-on-one training. If you're paying annually, you got 12 hours to use however you want. You can use all 12 hours in one day, or you can spread it out throughout the year and all. And I just wanted to give you a brief, quick example. Let me change. I got to change my resolution from this. And this is my goodbye to you. Let me change my display settings. I got to make it a little bit smaller. A little smaller. So bear with me a second while I do that. Resolution. Awesome. Hello, welcome back. I had to change my resolution back and everything. And let me share my screen one more time with you guys. This is one of the projects that I designed for the customers. So this is one of the 3D projects, the free projects that, the subscribers and all, you get 2 free projects. I designed the projects and everything and send them to you. So this would be one of them, right? Just to kind of give you a quick example. And they got 2 projects this month. So this was the second project. So I just wanted to share that one with you. Rodney Roberts, while this is the other one is pulling up. Rodney, what wattage do you recommend as far as laser? Whatever your laser wattage is. Like our laser, the digital wood carver laser is a 6-watt laser, right? So you would put in whatever wattage your laser is if you have a laser. Now, if you're asking what wattage do you recommend as far as to buy, I think they have up to the 10-watt laser out there, but 6 or 7, is a good laser to get, and everything. And hey, Crisscross Grass, if you guys haven't watched any of his videos, go over to his channel. He makes some great videos. Thanks for popping in this late at night, buddy. I appreciate you. I was opening up another project. It is freezing up on me. But anyway, that's an example of one of the projects that, of many, and you get 2 a month, right, with the training. So think about that. I would love to work with you guys and girls one-on-one if you ever need, and you can cancel your subscription at any time, right? So just throwing that, I gotta advertise, right? I gotta throw that out there. All right, everybody. I wanted to show you the other model. I thought it was cute, but for some reason, it's not wanting to load up. My Aspire is not wanting to load up. Never mind, it just did. God, it always catches me right at the end. So here's the other one. Let's go to the 3D view. Ah, isn't that cute? Come on, you got to tell me that's cute, right? So, you get those model projects every month that I make up and stuff and everything. And that was fun to sculpt and everything. But yeah, so we'll leave it at that. All right, everybody, until next time, I'm Laney Shaughnessy, and y'all have a great night. Thanks for sticking with me for 3.5 hours. Night, everybody.